Hi, this is Jeff Gottlieb, and we're going to do another episode of Earth Skills with Jeff Gottlieb. And I have an honored guest with me today, my good friend Nancy Baskett. And we have known each other for a very long time. Where we met was through primitive skills gatherings, like the River Canyon Falling Leaves Rendezvous and a number of other ones. And over the years, we've come to talk about some really interesting subjects and try to make sense of the world and the people that we love and the technologies that we're interested in. And Nancy is the owner of the very first Kudzu bale building, and I have the second one. I was inspired by hearing about hers, so we have lots of different connections on a lot of different levels. So Nancy is a fiber artist and works a lot with kudzu fibers and makes kudzu paper and does paper, cutout art with those things, and room-sized sculptures made out of kudzu and other kinds of fibers, and also miniatures the size of your thumbnail with all kinds of fibers. So it's always fun talking with Nancy about fibers. We did an episode a while back on turning fibers into cordage, things like that. So we've got loads of overlap, and we're always exchanging samples and ideas and stuff like that. But one thing that we've been exchanging ideas on for quite a while now is the idea that as we have stuck in these Earth Skills communities for so long, and we see so many people that come back year after year after year, and all kinds of friendships and relationships have sprung up, that it is turning into real community. And what we mean by real community is that there are people of all ages and a shared vision and a willingness to be honest and vulnerable with each other, and a willingness to help each other when asked, to the point where you bring your little children to a gathering and they just run around and make friends with grown-ups, because every grown-up you see, you know them and you trust them and you care about them and they care about your kids. So it's that sort of thing. So we've been talking about this for quite some time. So did you want to tell them what your background is in thinking about these sorts of things?
I've been thinking about things like this for a very long time, and I bring a Native American perspective to the whole issue of community. Some of our communities are based on respect for where we are now, and being here in Old Cherokee territory. I think that's important, as we have done in the past, is to invite the elders from up there to teach us things. They have done that for as long as they could, and then they crossed over. So many of us are too busy with what we're doing now, but some of us come back to primitive skills over and over because we love the people. And they ask us, well, what are the things that kept your communities together back in the day? That's what is important to me. So my elders have shared stories with me, and I share stories when we're making our art forms. That's just a ploy to get you in there so that we can share a good story. From there, then we can ask questions. And we really don't know anymore, being in the public school system, how to ask questions. We pass tests, we walk in straight lines, and at our gatherings, community is more about how do we take care of ourselves. So that takes many forms. There are women's issues, there are men's issues. Who do you look up to and why? And that is the crux, I believe, of the elderhood question.
I like it. And yeah, it's true that we've been doing these gatherings for so long. We've watched them kind of change their focus a little bit from being mostly about anthropology and technology and history. So we had people like reenactors and anthropologists and people interested in the hard skills. And over the years, I've seen more and more and more workshops and people interested in, well, how can I get some skills that I could use for me, for my family, for my life now? And so we see more things on permaculture and wild foods and things like that. So it's turned more into whole life and real life
Right.
for the people that come there. And so that's going to, of course, bring all the rest of the real life questions, like parenting questions,
Right.
and you know, when we have a problem as a community, how do we talk it out? And we've also been in these gatherings long enough to be often kind of consulted as, you know, experienced heads by the organizers as to, well, we've got this thing that's come up, what do you think? And I'm happy to tell people what I think, because I've seen things over a number of years, and I've seen them change, and I've seen some stuff that used to work really well, and how come we don't do that anymore? And I've seen some stuff that, you know, we could do, or that other groups do, or, you know, any number of things. So I've enjoyed being in the position where I could help, where I could give my perspective, and I don't have to give my perspective. I just can't serve on boards. They kill me.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, they kill me. And some people are like made for that, and they're true blue, and they come with every meeting, and they're patient as can be, and they're organized with their note taking and stuff like that. And well, I can take great notes, but just sitting in a meeting, I just die a little more each minute while I'm sitting there. Yeah. So, but I'm really happy when somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, we were wondering what you think about this." It's like, okay, I'll give it a well thought out answer. This is what I think, and you know, no guarantees they're going to use it for anything at all, and that's fine.
What I like is when they come and on the board that you sign up to go to a class, it says basketry. I should put a big red explanation, warning, Cherokee philosophy included, because we're always getting into that. You want to have something at the end of our time together that is physical. But when you're doing that, you don't have to talk about superfluous stuff. I don't like superfluous. I want to talk about deeper things that all of us have a different perspective on, and by sharing our perspective, we're more whole people when we leave.
I like it, and I've sat in on a number of Nancy's classes, and it's always fun to do that, because one of the things that the students get from it is that she'll call them on their crap in a really friendly, loving way that it's immediately apparent that she's trying to help, and she loves the person that she's giving advice to, because she didn't care about that person. Why'd she bother to try and show them something or explain something?
I have to set the container when people come in. If I like you, I tease you. If I don't like you, I'm going to get around to you in a minute, okay? So just let me have this space, or a little bit later, and I'll say something funny. Humor needs to be a part of our culture. We take ourselves too seriously, and if you can joke with me a little bit, and I can see that you can take that, then maybe we have a basis for deeper understanding.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's even fun just to go to Nancy's class and just kind of stand on the outskirts and just kind of lean an ear in there. So, yeah, you never know what you're going to get. So,
sometimes,
what
you know,
else can
Jeff,
you get? Yeah.
well, in your hard skills, you've got to be very careful when you're making doing flint knapping. If not, you're going to cut yourself, or you're not going to get what you want. In basketry, we have a little more leniency, but still, you've got to be able to have your mind someplace else so that you're not so concerned that it's got to be right. It's got to be exactly the way the teacher makes it. I don't play that. I don't have a rubric like you need in public school. You just come in here and sit down. Now, if you don't think that looks like a basket, fine. I can show you how to make something that you assume is a basket. But don't tell me that I'm passive aggressive, or, you know, and I had a person do that once. So he shall remain a story for as long as I need to tell about it.
Yeah, you have to be careful. If you have a tough time in Nancy's class, you could end up being a wonderful example for teaching other people later.
Yes.
So that's fun. Yeah. So yeah, we've been doing these for so long now that more and more people are coming to us in a role that's partly we grew into it, and partly it's studied and we've made decisions about it. So that role is, I mean, then you get the title stuff and the word stuff. So there's been more and more discussion in these groups about elder culture, and what does that mean? So what's an elder? Is an elder somebody that's just older than you? Is an elder somebody that, they just had some life experience and you want to know what they think about stuff? Is it somebody that, you give automatic respect to? So, I mean, the first thing a community has to do is come to terms with what the heck do we mean with that word? Because if I mean one thing and I'm going to make requests of my community and I'm going to give opinions about something, but you mean something else by that word, we better talk about that until we know what each other means about it, or we're going to end up ruffling feathers, or at least having disappointing conversations that don't go anywhere, or problems that don't get solved or something.
Yeah, it's not all about who gets to get in front of the line first to be fed.
Oh, that's so funny. At one point they said, we want to do something nice for elders and the people that have been in the community a long time. So they said, okay, elders can go to the front of the line, and us people that aren't like 90 years old yet, we're like, I'm not an elder. I'm not going to the front of the line. Well, it's so funny that we're kind of walking this knife edge, and we can fall either way with it. Are we an elder or aren't we an elder? Do we want some respect because we've got lots of experience and a viewpoint, or do we just want to just be?
There are two different kinds of people. They'll come up from outside of our culture or having been there before. You mean old people get to go to the front? Who's no old people? Okay, if you're 55 or older, let's just set that limit. That's what we did back in the day. If you come in, well, I can be this and I can go to the front line. Okay, that's true. But if you volunteer to be an elder, then you aren't. In a native culture, it's not humble. And when you have no humility, then things get out of whack real quick. Sometimes I go to the front of the line because I have a lot of people standing around waiting to talk to me, so that's good, and people don't mind. But we've been there, Jeff, for 35 years, 30, 25, whatever it's been. The community needs to choose who their elders are, and not all elders fit one niche. There are different ones of us that you'd come to for different things. I'm just old. So we just get the old people party. And then when you get with the older people, who are 70 or 80 or 90, they deserve a great lot of respect just for living that long. In this day and age when the food and the air and the water will hurt you if you don't drink the right stuff or eat it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things that we need to talk to and talk about. It's not just in the Earth Skills community. It's in different places that I go to in Durham and their organizations, and then you can get in trouble from some culture saying, hey, you're native. Did you know that you can get in trouble for saying that or being that? I got trouble for being Indian in the 21st century when the letter came from the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
No kidding.
Yes, because my website said Cherokee mask. Because I made it, I can't say that I'm Cherokee because I can get put in jail and fined $250,000.
Is it that blood percentage thing?
Yes, and people don't know that once you're a full blood and you marry into the white nation, let's say, then your kids are 1/2 native. Then the 1/2 native kid marries into the black nation. Their kids are 1/4. If that 1/4 kid marries into the Hispanic nation, you're always Hispanic. And that is the American government's way of saying there are no more Indians after a while. There's no more problem. I even like to be called an Indian because a lot of people think Columbus tried to find India a long time ago. And that whole myth, all these stereotypes are still alive today. And we have to understand that you can get into deep trouble. So I don't put that on anything that I make. It's not important who we are or who we were back in the day. The cultures need to come together so that we can find a common denomination to where we can agree that communities need to spring from now. And that's what we're trying to do.
I guess they have to, because we don't live 100 years ago. We live now with people who are alive now with us,
Yes.
we can wish for stuff, but we don't have any of that raw material left. We don't have anybody that's 150 years old to talk to.
No, so they get left with the leftovers.
Yeah.
You know, those of us who are younger, those of us might know something if you can take a little joke. Or there are those that you can go to and spend 3 hours with them, and you might know something a lot more about yourself. Maybe they have counseling abilities. Some of us do and some of us don't. Do you want the short? Do you want the long? And somewhere in the middle, we've got the middle age group people coming along with great skills that they're bringing with them. And they're sitting down and listening to some of us too. Hey, I want to know who you are. I'm watching you. Because that's the way we did it back in the day. You don't volunteer to be a storyteller. You don't volunteer to be any of these positions. That's not what's important. The community will tell you because they'll keep showing up. And they will tell us who they want to form councils. So that's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
We women met at a women's group, and those of us who have been seen by our communities as old, we just had an old person talk. And it was terrific because we settled some issues. If the women come in with something they need to hear, I was kind of hard on them. You can't just sit around looking good and expecting somebody to take care of you the rest of your life. How are you going to take care of yourself? Here are some of the books I read. Here are some of the stories. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry around all these books, and I'm going to give them a prescription. And here is the story that I think that you need to have now. Because I think that there's medicine in story.
So, I'd like to clarify. So, you talked to the women about some issues, and that you wanted to, read books so that you had some perspective on subjects and ways to look at things, and then when somebody comes to you and they're acting a certain way, you could say, let me tell you a story. And they'll sit and they'll listen to the story. And I took a storytelling workshop with Doug Elliott and a master storyteller from Long Island many years ago on telling stories about nature. And one of the things that came up was that just kind of the biology of storytelling, that you listen to a story and your brain flashes the same lights as if you're having the actual experience.
Yeah.
But if I say to you, you should do this and this and this, or this is how this works, or whatever, a different part of your brain goes. So as soon as you say once upon a time, I mean, you notice this with people, as soon as you say the magic words once upon a time, they get internally quiet, and their ears open bigger, and it goes right in. And so the storytelling format is, I think, a powerful tool that way for bypassing people's natural, thanks for the advice, and I'm going to keep on doing whatever I'm doing. But
Exactly.
the storytelling is going to grow in them. I think of storytelling, I mean, a long time ago when I was attending ceremony with David Winston and some other real interesting traditionalist folks, he was talking about storytelling as medicine. It's a medicine way.
Yes, it is.
And I thought about the metaphor for storytelling and medicine. Like, you take medicine, and then it's going to produce a change. And with storytelling, you take the medicine inside you, and you don't necessarily know exactly when it's going to activate and have its effect. But maybe in 15 years, some life thing is going to happen to you, and you're going to be like, oh, it's like that story that I heard. And then you know what to do, and you know how you want to look at it.
Storytellers need to be wired for the stories that they tell, so they know how to work with what might come up. A storyteller has many different kinds of prescriptions. And I like it because you don't get charged with doing medicine without a license. Yeah. And so they can take it. A story is meant to be heard the way that that person can hear it, from their perspective. It doesn't have a happily ever after. It doesn't have a moral to the story. And that's what we've been geared to believe. Oh, I can only see it in one way. No, you see a story when you're little in one way, when you're middle age, you see it a different way, and you can hear the story again and again and still get something new from it because hopefully you've traveled. Now, my daughter did make a mistake once. She said, "Hey,
Just
Mama."
once?
That's all I'm going to talk about
Okay,
right now.
okay.
But she said, "Hey, Mom, I've heard that story before," and we happened to be in a school, and she was with me. I said, "Oh, good, I'm glad that you know that story. Get up and tell it." She had to get up and tell it. She says, and I did a pretty good job of it, too. I go, you did. You don't want to scare your children into doing that because they might never want to be in public again. But she speaks very well.
Absolutely. Yeah, so where was I going with that? So with the
Storytelling and medicine, and
yeah.
it works for us really well in our primitive skills, our
I
basic
remember.
earth skills events, because people can do that at the same time they're actually making something, or they can take an unfinished basket to somewhere else that might be lecture type. Please bring what you need to work on and work and listen at the same time.
I remember where I was going with that when you were talking about different people have to take the story from where they are and then kind of inhabit it a little bit. I was just teaching at Piedmont Wildlife Center last week, and when you tell a story there's kind of a culture in that camp of the kids having an opportunity to what they call feed the story.
Yes.
And so they can tell you what they imagined the next thing that happened to the character would be,
Right.
or they can ask a question about the story, or they can tell you how that made them feel about it, so feed the story. And I really like that because the kids didn't just go, clap, 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 that was a good story. They stayed living in it for a moment and told you how they were connected to it.
I was out there
That's
with
lovely.
them for several different years, and so we tried to promote that culture. It's a very special
Yeah,
place
that one
there.
might have come from you, that technique of...
Well, Sarah Haggerty
Uh-huh.
started that too. So we have a lot of these different people that come from one community to different communities, and then they might travel somewhere else for some learning or for some teaching.
Yeah.
So they'll carry it there. We have to be careful about saying that community, the ones that we create temporarily, we want that feeling all year long. So people go out and start their own community. You've got to be careful about who owns the land. You always want it to be one way, but it doesn't stay like that forever. People can die. People can have to sell the money because their parents are ill. There's all kinds of things, and these people have gone in and put their heart and soul into a community, and it's fallen apart. So be careful of that. You want elders. Oh, really? So your place is like this, and it's on this much land, and you have to go down to the bottom to the river where you've got the hot tub set up with an iron tub on. You have to start the fire. Well, we're not going to be able to get up and down there. You're not going to get old people very much to come to a community like that. So how can you get well-rounded? And isn't it more important for us to take what we learn there a couple of times a year, or how many times that we come to these gatherings, and then take that home, digest it, live with it, try it out in your own place that you found for yourself, and then we come back together again for some more.
And I see that word community as having two different facets too. One would be the physical, this is where it's kind of like school. Is a school a building, or is a school the interaction between educators and students? So they could do that on the lawn, and it would still be school.
Right.
But, is this about the location and about the infrastructure and the place people are actually, laying their heads or putting money down or owning it or whatever? Or is it about the relationships? So I see that, when we go to these gatherings, they're temporary. We rent a place for a week, and then we show up and we pick up conversations like they never ended. I do this all the time. River Canyon Falling Leaves is the same group of people, 6 months apart, and I feel like I pick up conversations just like I put them down 5 minutes ago.
And hopefully with people like you that have just moved up the mountain, I'm down the mountain, and we can do things together more often.
That's
and that's
what's
important
been growing.
too.
Yeah, the fact that, we used to hear a lot at gatherings, oh, why can't we live like this all the time? And the way the thing is, I think the way to do it is we all have to live where we live because of a lot of factors, but we can visit, and we can talk, and we can get together and work on a project, and we can consult each other when we need it. I just had Bill Paravano come over last week, and we had a fun visit, and he was there when I burnt my leg, and he helped me while I was hobbling around. But I think he's a perfect example of somebody that's looking at the community for connection and support, and what can he contribute, and what kind of help is there for him. And it's because he made personal connections with the people.
Absolutely. We still have those connections, and I'm glad for technology, because we could even a little message, because some of us live so remotely, we don't get cell reception all the time, but once in a while we can go
fewer, because they keep putting up more cell towers.
Well, really, I was just at Camp Daniel Boone, and the women went there for several days, and we are instilling a woman's energy and talking about things, because the Girl Scouts are coming and joining the Boy Scouts. So there's going to be a different way of dealing with each other, a different way of working.
Yes, there's going to have to be, and wow, that was a real blockbuster of a decision. Communities
coming together.
Well, and other things too. A lot of it's just about money. The Boy Scouts are shrinking. And Girl Scouts have said for a long time, we don't do anything real,
Except for the cookie selling part. I know, that's all.
Real. That's about money too, of course, more than anything else.
Yeah, but what they're looking for, I think, is more about community. But since Boy Scouts are based on Native American culture, I think it would be a very good idea to find some local people who might give them some current perspective on what is appropriation, what isn't, where can I take this, where doesn't it work, and what is the heart of all of this, how you keep the girls and the guys separate for some things, but they still need to know those core skills where they can go into the woods if they get lost, and plenty of kids do, how you take care of yourself for a while. And there are a few simple things that if you know how to do that, you're going to be just fine. You don't have to be scared to death because an owl hoots at night. Figure out how to...
And the way around that is having actual experiences.
Yes.
And then you get over it.
A lot of our city kids don't get out of the city. You need to come out and experience what's real. After a while, you've been there, you can go out and have a night by yourself. Some of our adults need to have a night by themselves, and I've participated in those too. Okay, you've learned these skills. Now you got a one-match fire. How are you going to do? Oh, it's a little bit damp. That's not going to be so easy. Now, are you going to have a light to hold you, hold your fear away? A light to comfort you all night or not? Or can you handle not having any light? And what is the light that we bring with us into a situation like that anyway? What are the stories that you've been told? What are the stories that you yet need to hear so that you can hold yourself without being afraid?
That's neat. So, can you share some of the kind of nuts and bolts of what the women's thoughts were about community and what's that perspective?
When I was telling you, I'm
all I can get from it is either what I can imagine or what women tell me.
Thank you so much for asking these questions, Jeff, because
how would I know otherwise?
You don't. And so that's why we have to have the women's group and the men's group. And I think that back in the day, we always had the one man and the one woman who could communicate well, and they would tell each other the stories, and then they would go back and impart those to the separate communities. There is women issues that need to be kept to the women, and there are men issues, and we don't do that anymore. And when you conflate all of these things, we've found that it causes problems in some of our communities. So we are laying down some guidelines for our different sets of events that go on. Here's what you're going to do, and here's what you're not going to do. Don't you have Nancy Baskett come and say you can't do this anymore. And it's not, just me. I've got backup. And so the young people will know from the gate book, this is what's acceptable behavior and this isn't. And if that's delineated, and if we make sure that the lodge ceremony goes on in a safe place, you don't have to come and participate in everything. It might be against your culture to do different things like that, but you can come and participate in what you can. And we encourage all different kinds of communities and cultures to come out. If you don't like bugs, just take some bug spray for a while. Or if you don't like being in the woods with people you don't know, come out and be in the daytime and then go get a motel at night or something. But we want different people to come and share the core of what held them together. And these would be the stories that they were taught. So I think that there certain needs to be women's stories and men's stories. What are the books that we can learn from now that our parents might not have known to tell us, but they're available? So that's what we were doing.
That's the kind of stuff you were talking about. Is the framework.
The framework. We're trying to set up a framework because we've discussed it for a long time. Now let's set it down so that people know how things are going to be handled. If you're getting rough with a child or we hear this, it's up to community members to tell somebody in the organization, here's what I heard, can you check this out please? Mm-hmm. And so we will go with loving kindness and say, this is what we heard, can you explain your side of the story for this? And then we might find out that not everybody's perfect when we go to the gatherings, okay? And you might have a problem.
We are kind of on our best behavior, aren't we?
We try, and no, we really try. But when people overindulge in anything, even if it's their own self-importance, then you might need to sit down and talk to a minute. Say, hey, do you know how what you're doing is affecting everybody else? And if we can be kind and talk about it, okay, then we will come to some sort of an agreement. And if not, some people might have to go home until that they can come and, again, look at the guidelines. Here's what you're agreeing to by coming to our event. Does that make sense?
Some tough love.
I don't believe in punishment. I do believe in consequences for your actions.
No, I meant the love part. I meant that sometimes you have to be firm about sticking to what you said, and
exactly,
and asking people to be accountable for their actions, and
because everything's not wishy-washy.
And when they're ready to be accountable, you welcome them right back in.
Absolutely, yes. There might be restitution for what you've done. There might be some apologies. There might be some thing that we ask you to do, and this is to see if you're coming back with an attitude or if you truly want to learn again with the whole.
Yeah, I guess I see a lot of people when they're in the middle of some difficulties, they're going to respond in ways that, we would look and say, oh, they shouldn't do that. But the reason why they're to that point means that they really need some help. They really need the pressure to come off. They really need some time. They need a new perspective. They need something.
Yes.
They're not evil. They're really having a hard time, and we can help them.
And that's the rest of the story. The story that comes before the actions that we're seeing now, mm-hmm. and then the story that comes afterwards. Have you been helped? Do we need to send some people out? Who are the people in your community that would volunteer to help you make that better?
I'd like to get some people together and have the conversation about how can we get all the participants to get more fluent in talking with other members and asking for things they need and saying when they're having a hard time. Because, we're all shut. I got this, rugged individualists.
Yeah.
So community members, because we know each other for years and we trust each other, you don't have to do it all by yourself. You've got people that you like them, you trust them, you know their track record, you know that they care about you. Mm-hmm. So if you could bring yourself to explain yourself and ask them for their perspective, it would be good.
We're trying to do that, but there are ways to do that, and don't just put your stuff on Facebook. You know, when you spew forth and your anger or your frustration or anything else, that conflates the issue. That makes it worse. And everybody sees it. Now there's more restitution. There's going to be more, okay, you've got a hole. So it needs to be filled with something to make you whole to where you can come back. Because that's not going to do any good, just to rant and rave. We've got some people who need some issues dealt with for long term. Then we've got people who are out of sorts every once in a while for certain reasons, and then they feel the older they are, the more they're entitled. Community, I've been here a long time, take care of me. It's not like that either. We've got to have a different way of looking at things, and you can't come in feeling entitled no matter how old you are. There are ways to get around that and to meet needs without feeling self-importance.
I had a thought the other day. You know, you and I have talked about, you know, it's like, I just turned 60, so am I an elder? What does that mean? And then, you know, I walk around saying, well, you know, I don't feel like an elder. I feel like I got a lot of work to do before I can be all that helpful to others or serve the community in that way. So I'll call myself an elder in training. So I'm in training. And the thought that I had the other day was, if you're not always an elder in training for the rest of your life, then you're not keeping up.
For Native people to call yourself an elder, you're not.
Well, that's the other part
I
of it.
know,
Was, yeah.
I know. So what are you going to do? Hey, I'm just an old person. I'm just somebody that people come to once in a while. I think that once we call ourselves an elder, then that self-importance, or you're putting yourself above, we don't have the right to do that. Only the community can call us that.
Well, and any time I'm, you know, in a conversation with a younger person, I say, I don't think of myself as an elder, and he's like, I'm not an elder. They will lovingly correct me and say, well, you're an elder to me. And
then
like,
that's important.
I'm not the one that can wield the word.
No, we don't call ourselves that. The community might, and we will accept what they call us. But we don't say that for ourselves. Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Okay.
It totally does to me, because that give and take that I've had with younger people about that really shed some light on it. You know, there's lots of stuff where it's not my job to stand here and proclaim this. It's somebody else's need for me. That, you know, if they don't need me for anything, that title just evaporates. It isn't anything at all if other people don't need me.
But I think the younger people are coming because maybe from the culture they're from, they haven't had these kinds of parameters. It's not something false that we're creating. It is something that's been called for by our intentional community.
I agree.
And it can last longer than the event. Like we said, if you need some help, ask us. We'll see what we can do. I think that in our own communities where we live all the time, there are people to help. So what we're doing is finding the older people in the different areas to spread the word that this is available. Don't put it out there in the media because you're mad. Come to somebody, get some help, and then we can deal with it in a better way.
Yeah. So with, let's see, how should I pose the question so that we can talk about it? I don't know. It went away. It evaporated. Happens all the time. I remember a thought that went through my head. And it was about, I'm starting to see more and more younger people saying, we see the value of elder culture, what can we do? And they think of stuff like, you know, elders should go to the front of the line. And I don't need to go to the front of the line. So how do you generate, well, and there's a person who's kind of taken it on as a personal role in the community, is to say, what can we do for, you know, for elders to show that we value that you're there or whatever. And the first thing that I said was, don't try to formalize it and put what you do for elders into some one size fits all. We do this for elders because it's always going to be personal relationships. You want to do something that's useful to me? Come over and visit me.
Right.
And bring something that you want to work on or you want to think about, and then come and help me with one of mine, and we'll have a meal and we'll laugh and we'll get to the bottom of stuff, and then we'll have a great big hug, and you'll go away feeling like somebody cares about you, and and that's it. I mean, it's like what you do with your grandma or your grandpa if you had a good relationship with them.
Or some of the young people come to me and say, "Oh, I just want to learn with you. Can I come to your house and stay and help you?" That is my sanctuary.
Yeah,
and I can't do that. I mean, a lot of people can, but I can't.
Because it's going to be individual. Some people can do it and like that, and some people can't do it, or they don't like that. That's just not how they teach or how they roll.
So each individual older person is different, and they have different family situations.
Right.
And we can't just be meeting with people all the time. So you have to almost go to an event where we're at, and that's in lots of different places for many of us, and participate there. And then go and take some medicine and read for yourself and help, yourself, because we've given you some pathways to travel to see which one fits you best.
Yeah, I like it. And what that's going to lead to is you go to a gathering and you actually meet people.
Yeah.
And you actually get to know them, and you actually, you adopt them into your family, sort of, your chosen family.
And what I like with the younger children is they have a place too. And they need to help older people. And the way that you could help me is, if you can see that I've got a couple things in my arms, if you'd come up to me and say, "May I please carry the chair for you?" Because I'm always carrying a chair because I like to sit down and talking. And then we older people need to give them that opportunity. And I can do it myself. Yeah, we know, but can I do something for you? This would be easy. Can the little kids go and pick up some sticks of different sizes to put by the fire so that we can have the small sticks that lead to the middle sticks? And what are the sticks can they gather for us? Because we're teaching classes, we don't have time to go in the woods and find our own sticks, but that we put these sticks as a remembrance in the fire for those who have gone. These are things that need to be instituted.
What I like about that is that to each according to their abilities.
Yes.
Like, if you say to a child, I need you to chainsaw these logs, they can't do that. No. That's not in their wheelhouse. But they can bring sticks of this size or sticks of that size. They can carry that chair. And that's how you'll have the time and the space to meet them. Because if you sit down and you're sitting face to face across the table with somebody, that's serious, and a lot of people are going to clam up. But if we're walking side by side because you're carrying my chair, we can just bond. We can connect. And then you can feel like it would be okay if I opened up and talked about this difficult thing or whatever.
Yes, or create a time when between, in the early mornings is my thing. Don't call me late at night. I'm already sleeping. We all have our different time frames, but find a few minutes and we can talk about some things. I might give you 3 questions to answer about yourself. Now go do your homework. If you're going to go do the homework, you come back with your own answers and we can talk again. Because old people aren't visionaries. We might have had a dream a long time ago to start something like this, or a dream to come to different places to find the materials that we need to make a basket because it's too expensive buying it from a wholesale place. And that leads us on our path. We need to help these young kids and the middles who are going to grow up to be the older ones who are looking after everybody else. What is your medicine? What is it that you're here to do? You don't have to save the world. That's already been done, sort of, and it's still not being done very well, but we're keep hoping. What is it that you can do with yourself, and what can you give back? But if you don't know what that is, and you just keep going around sad all the time, you can build that brush shelter for yourself. You can build that house of pain and sorrow and misery and stay in there as long as you want to. And you can also build a beautiful house of joy and happiness and fun, and you can stay in that house as long as you built it. So which one are you going to choose today? I'm not saying get over it. I'm saying understand where you're at. A lot of people have been there too. Now go on and to do something else.
Well, I can only do what I can do.
Yes.
So if I spend a lot of time thinking about stuff that I can't make a dent in at all,
Okay.
I'm wasting my energy, I'm wasting my time, and I'm going to get frustrated and disappointed, and you know. But if I can teach this kid, or make this thing out of this instead of out of that, or enjoy this activity, or you know, grow this plant, or whatever, then I feel like I thought about it, I decided it was constructive, I did it.
Yes. And we can make a little list for ourselves and then check off all the things that we did on that list, and that's a good day. Even if we only get one thing done, good. But I've got lists and I put things on it and it rolls out the door and it keeps getting longer. And I have all these little pieces of paper there. If you're getting one or two things done a day, it's a good day.
Yeah, so I get a lot of people that come and visit me, which I love. Because I love the company, I love the conversation, and you know, it's happening. When I was in my 50s, I felt like I was making things happen. I was doing, you know, I bought my property, I moved from New York, I learned how to do natural building, I built a kudzu house, and I did this and I did that, and I grew in what kind of relationships I could have with people, and you know, just like boom, 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 big things. It was my power decade. And then as I was approaching 60, I went, what's that going to be like? It's not going to be the same. And now I'm seeing my role laid out, growing up some more. And you know, if the community thinks that I can be helpful and I can mentor and I can do this, that, and the other thing, then my big job is getting rid of the personal crap in my head that's making it so I'm not as good at it.
I think part of that comes from the lifestyle where you have animals, you have to be there all the time, or you have to have somebody to help with that, or you have to tend the garden. There's a lot of physical labor and 24-hour-a-day involvement in the lifestyle you've chosen. Sometimes we need a little more comfort than that. We're not back in the day. We don't have to stay back in the day. We can build something with air conditioning. We can have a little something maybe with a gas stove or something, and we don't have to feel bad about that. We're not betraying anything. Our values or what we're telling people is important. We have to take care of ourselves as we get older so that we can stay longer to help the kids and the middles become who they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm finding that to be true. That's why I want to build a slightly more modern, very small house for myself.
Excellent. Hey, then our grandparents and parents can come visit.
Yeah, my brother won't come and visit until I have a flush toilet. So.
Well, we all have our lines in the sand, don't we?
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah, so we got into a bunch of the human feelings about community and about gatherings. I just want to reconnect it to the physical things about those gatherings, because I would hate people to say, well, if it's all going to be talking and touchy-feely, I'm not going to ever get to do anything. But, you know, for viewers, what we're talking about are these gatherings designed to teach skills, earth skills, you could say. It's kind of a newly coined term, earth skills. We haven't been using that in our community for very long. They used to be primitive skills gatherings, and they are places where lots of instructors with their specialties and the things that they like teaching about come together and offer workshops on how to do this, that, the other thing. Everything from preparing herbal medicines to making kudzu coil baskets to
bug skinning, flint napping.
Right. Truly the hands-on skills. And what we found was that doing all of these hands-on skills and then using them in your life leads you to thinking about a lot of things, thinking about what's the relationship between all the people that do it and how much do you need the other people and for what, and do you want to do this by yourself, do you want to do this in a family group, do you want to do this in a community that lives together. And so there was all this communication that sprang up after lots and lots and lots of elbow grease and crafting and work with the knife and work with weaving and work with fibers and work with rocks and so if that's what you're into and you say to yourself, but I really want to know how to make stone tools, or I really want to know how to make a shelter that will really keep rain off, it's the place to go, and you will get all those things. And you might think from our discussion today that what you're really going to get is a giant dose of philosophy and advice and whatever. That isn't what you get. That isn't what you get at all. But I guarantee if you do lots of skills and you meet lots of people who are teaching, you're going to have some questions. You're going to think about yourself and your own role in all of this, and what's it for, and what about the people that aren't coming to these things? How are they living in it? Does it really suit them? Considering you come to a gathering like this and you see a whole bunch of people who are really, really, really happy to learn how to make this and to meet somebody else that knows how to make this, or how to do this skill, or how to, they're really happy. And a lot of them feel like, and if you go and you ask them, they'll tell you that they feel like they were just out in the cold all by themselves, and when they figured out to come to a gathering and they met 200 people that are interested in this kind of stuff, they're like, oh, I've come in out of the cold, let me warm myself by the fire. And the fire is the intention to get together with all these things.
I think it's great to come to these gatherings, to go on a plant walk, and at one part of the year find out what is out there for medicine, what is for food, and then translate that to your own backyard. What can I go out there and eat? Why would that be good for me? What is it that I need to avoid? Well, we actually go out and pick greens for salads and use that so that you can have a little sample of something that you might never have known. That's what makes me feel more empowered, is to be able to go out and say, oh yeah, I got this old kudzu out there. I know I can eat that, just a little leaves at a certain time. Oh, I know I can make cordage out of that. Did you know that in Polynesia, the king sat down and they made the small cordage? They gave that to somebody else who made the larger cordage. They actually had a job. I think that's wonderful. Let's bring that back into society now. And then I love the YouTube video that you can find the community in Peru that once a year they get together. The grandmas.
The bridge.
Yes.
Oh,
and they sit there, the grandmas make the little cordage. They pass that off to some other people who make the bigger cordage. They make cordage ropes this big, and then there's a huge chasm that you could fall to your death if you don't do it right. And they have this rope bridge, and that it connects one village to another village. And as they make more rope, they start the beginning of it and they cut down the other one and it falls into the water. But they have to come together every year to make this commitment for community. And that's what I hope that we can do, is to sit and learn the stories while you're having the skills, and you can have the history and how can I go from here to be better, because now I've got a skill. Well, you come back a couple times a year, or find where the other people are so that you can have what you want, hard skills or some of the stories to go with it. And this is how we keep our community together.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking was, you hear a lot of people that when they come to their first gathering, they don't know what to take. There's so many classes. Right. There's so many things that they can do. I don't know what. I want to go to 3 things at one time. And so I just kind of pat them on the shoulder and say, come back. Next time you come, you can take the other one.
I'm usually sitting out front, so if I see a new face, I go, hey, what's your name? Come here a minute. And then I tease you a little bit and I tell you why. Now, you can take my class, you can do this, but we welcome you in. If you don't know anybody, come find one of us.
You will soon, because there's a lot of really friendly people that are happy to meet you. And it's interesting to just watch the dynamic of the people that, like, I know that's a newcomer. You know, we all get together and we're, you know, getting our breakfast and we're sitting, you know, do they have somebody to talk to?
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like, they're bomb-proof. They go to a group of 1,000 people they don't know, and they've got 7 friends in 3 hours. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are other people that they'll sit by themselves. They could go through a whole week, and if you talk to them, they learned a bunch of things, but they didn't really meet anybody. So, I mean, I've seen you do it, and I try to do it. I wish I could do it more, and that is to get those people communicating and say, so you know, what did you take? What are you interested in? It's like, did you meet so and so? They're really into that, and they
Yeah.
live right near you. And
Yep.
so you help those people make those connections,
Mm-hmm.
because community is not about everybody knows stuff. It's about the connections, the human connections. So, yeah. So I think we've threshed the subject pretty well.
I think so.
Yeah. So yeah, come to gatherings and look us each up. Actually, you can find Nancy's business and as an educator and as a craftsman, as an artist, at Kudzu Kabin Designs.
Yes.
Is that your website?
Uh-huh.
And Kudzu spelled with a K, and
Yes, it is.
Kabin spelled with a K.
Yes. Well, kudzu is spelled with a K, you know.
Yes, yes.
It kind of warps the shape, you know, just kind of grows over and eats seeds and turns them into Ks. But I'm down in Walhalla, just not too far from here. And our shop is open 10 to 4 Monday through Saturday.
And if you're ever near there, you should go and see the shop. It's just so full of fiber wonders. Everything from you know, just so cleverly cut paper art and kudzu paper made from kudzu fibers, and her miniature baskets and her large size baskets and her sculptures and all kinds of other stuff. And you might even get a story while you're there. I don't know.
I don't know, maybe.
It could happen. And yes, and pretty soon I'm going to have a website.
Yay!
And so when I do, I will publish the details, and you can get to these shows through my website, and you can find out about my website via these shows. So that's going to be Earth Skills with Jeff Gottlieb, and my guest has been Nancy Baskett, my good friend.
Thank you.